As I laid on the mattress, I dozed off. I immediately started feeling like I was dreaming. I had a dream that my son, my 8-year-old son, was standing beside my bed. I remember in the dream asking him why he was there, who brought him there, and how to get there. And I guess I had enough consciousness to know he shouldn't be there. So I immediately woke up, and when I did, there was this figure standing beside the bed. Had long arms, skinny like fingers, skinny arms, wings above its shoulders, and its face, I could see dark, large circles where its eyes would be.
And it was late in the evening. We're coming around the first curve, and the first curve will be near a graveyard, actually. And as we come around the curve, we slowed down, and the headlights hit something in the road. What they hit was a form. And for a split second, I thought, oh, it's a large bird in the middle of the road. It kind of stands up a little bit. With just one movement, it shot straight up.
When it got to that part of the house and went up over the house, you actually could hear it. I stood up, turned around to the back window of the bedroom, and you could see the shadow of whatever this was flying over the field to the back of the house.
Seth Breedlove, Ohio filmmaker. He has written, edited, produced, and directed shorts and features about a variety of topics, but is best known for his production company and films they produced under the Small Town Monsters banner. Seth Breedlove joins Sean Forker and Vance Nesbitt for a deep discussion about all things Small Town Monsters.
The idea of a creature larger than a gorilla with an odor like a skunk might seem far-fetched.
From the beginning of his time on Earth, man has always been fascinated by monsters, real or imagined.
The outside world is very judgmental about these things, with many people not believing in them whatsoever.
Cloaked in secrecy, they show up without warning, state their business, then vanish as quickly as they appear.
They only land in isolated places. They have taken people, I believe. They do have technology.
But the idea is if enough people focus on something, like thousands and thousands of people focus their mind on something and the image, in a very strange way, they can kind of create a real-world version of the fictional entity.
Fact, fantasy, and history have come together to tease the imagination.
That the truth will out, and that no one lie can live forever.
Welcome to SuperNRML. And good evening, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, whenever you plan on listening, because it doesn't matter, because we're a podcast and not live anymore. You're listening to SuperNRML, SuperNRML. I'm Sean the Fort Chop Forker with Vance Nesbitt over here off to my left, and our good friend Seth Breedlove joining us tonight. You heard a little bit about him at the intro. And Vance, I'm the verbal equivalent of all thumbs tonight.
Are you really?
I'm just tripping over everything.
Well, that's okay. Perhaps we could find somebody that can make a documentary about that. That'd be interesting.
Oh, yeah, that'll get butts in the seats.
The all thumbs.
That's their follow-up to the Mark of the Bell Witch.
There it is.
And there we go. Already off to the start. Folks, that's Seth Breedlove joining us, our friend from Ohio, filmmaker, the founder, producer, director, writer, everything over at Small Town Monsters. And, of course, it's that time of year again where we get Seth on our programming to talk about the Kickstarter that will be soon winding down, and the projects coming up this year, and just getting to talk with our friend a little bit, because believe it or not, I don't get to see him too often because he's busy and I'm busy. Usually we see each other, Seth, at like Mothman or some Bigfoot event, but it's getting fewer and further between.
We're going to have a hard time topping our night out in Ohio pile. that's going to be the high point for a long time, I think. So
that was a fun night.
But yeah, it's we see each other. This past year, we saw each other at Mothman, and then we saw each other at Eric's thing. Was there anything else? I can't remember.
Those are the only two things I did last year with events. There's too many of them now. It's difficult for me to decide which ones I want to go to, and you only have so much time to promote.
Yeah, we're not doing hardly any this year. As of right now, I've got I can count them on one hand. So we just really don't have anything scheduled for the year. We've got some smaller local events, maybe. I don't even know if that's true. I might be talking on to turn. But we've got the Wild and Weird West Virginia Con coming up in, I think, April, and we've got our own event on March 21st at the Canton Palace Theater, the Mysteries and Monsters, and that's two. We've got one in Alton, Illinois, Troy Taylor's Haunted America conference I was asked to come to. So we're going to do that. And then we've got Mothman. I think that's it. I think it's 4. I think that is our event schedule for the year.
Well, I'm excited about the Mysteries and Monsters event because I'm actually showing up. I got my hotel booked. I'm ready to go and visit. The Red Roof Inn. I'm probably going to die, but
Is it as long as, see, this is one thing I'm suggesting to anyone that gets a room. It's too late now for you. So, but I'm suggesting to anyone that gets a room to make sure they're in the Belden Village area. Cause like Canton, I don't know what's happened in the last, Adrian and I moved out in 2013 and it's become a crime ridden cesspool in the last 5 years since we left, 6 years, whatever it is. So, but I'm sure you'll be fine, Sean. I'm sure you'll live.
Well, fat people are hard to kidnap, so I still have the market, so we're okay.
I'll tell you what, you can't go wrong in Canton with ice cream. Just hit me up before you eat while you're in town. I didn't realize you're coming. We're all going to have to do so. What night are you getting in? Friday or Saturday?
Friday.
We're all going to have to meet up on Friday night for dinner or something.
Yeah, I'm coming in Friday, leaving on Sunday. So those folks that are listening and want to camp outside my hotel,
yeah,
you got a good chance of
Red Roof Inn.
That's right.
Yeah,
Vance, it's better than the Nights Inn we stayed at, I bet.
I was just having a conversation about that tonight. Was somebody that I know that got kicked out of there?
Really?
I'm like, how could you have gotten kicked out of there?
There was
because my brother was smoking weed in the bathroom, and I'm how did they? Whatever. But
is this Point Pleasant though?
Yeah.
No, this is it's in Gallipolis. The Nights Inn is Gallipolis, but yes,
same thing. There was a drug dealer shot either in the parking lot or in a room at that same hotel, and then we stayed there 2 nights after that happened. And when we got into our rooms, this was on one of the coldest nights of the year. It was 12 degrees down there. When we got into our rooms, the heat hadn't been turned on, so the rooms were both in the 40s, and it took until morning for them to hit the low 60s. So I slept in a coat and a full coat and everything the night we were filming. That was when we stayed down there when we were filming the Mothman at Point Pleasant.
Well, we had a good experience. I have to say, Dan was our the manager, Seth Vance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice guy, very chatty, made us comfortable. He was a good dude, but we got our money's worth, that's for sure. But you don't really go to these things to stay in the room. You go to the network with your friends and to have a good time. And that event, Seth, just keeps growing and growing, it seems, every year. The Mothman Festival. It's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's I thought this past year was sort of a miracle, just in showing off how little you. Let me think of the right way to word this, because what I was about to say was totally wrong. They're just the draw wasn't there this year compared to some of the past years. They didn't have Bethesda last year, or some of the bigger paranormal guests that they had in previous years, and they still packed it in. So it's a testament to the work Jeff does down there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a different kind of vibe this past year, but I enjoyed myself. It's just fun getting together with everybody because, man, you got a lot on your plate. You got a lot of movies you're doing. This year seems to be maybe, I know On the Trail of UFOs, and let's talk about that a little bit. It was probably the biggest project you've done so far.
Yeah, by far. There's nothing, there's even, I mean, just in terms of runtime, it's it's like 100 minutes beyond what, it might be more than that. It's like 100 minutes beyond what, am I talking out of turn again? How long was On the Trail of Bigfoot?
Oh, it was what? 6 episodes?
Yeah, 6 episodes. It's like 100. I can't remember. It's like 100 and I can't remember. But this one was like 240 minutes. 200. I'm blanking. But anyway, yeah. By far, this was the biggest project we've done by at least an hour and 10 minutes just in terms of runtime. But and you know, if you look at the scope of what we attempted with. It was On the Trail of Bigfoot, but with effects. You know, Bigfoot had no effects whatsoever, very little in the way of recreations or any of that. This was like merging what we do with the movies with On the Trail of. So it took what was already pretty I don't know what to call it. I mean, very high concept in terms of what we were attempting to pull off, and then it melds it with the effects work. I had to teach myself how to do effects because we got to the point, and I've always been able to mess around with like lights, you know, for like UFOs and stuff. But we tried stuff on this that I'd never done before. I actually created a couple of the like found footage looking shots. Like I did Sam Sheeran's recreation, which shows the lights moving across the Los Angeles sky. I did Gary Tribert's 8mm footage where you see the UFO over the gravel pit. I did, yeah. It was insane what we did on this one.
Did you do the one for my segment?
Let me think. Yes, I actually did. That
was cool.
Yeah, that was all me.
I like that.
So yeah, it was a challenge just in terms of what we were trying to. It would have been a challenge if we were just doing it like On the Trail of Bigfoot. Because the subject is so big, and we were trying to do something in terms of storytelling that was a lot more, not complicated, but a much more, it wasn't as straightforward as On the Trail of Bigfoot. Bigfoot had a chronological story to it. You know, the first 3 episodes are told chronologically, beginning with, you know, Ape Canyon and all that, and then moving up into the present day. And then the last 3 episodes are all about sort of the research into the subject, the phenomenon. And this was very different. The entire series, I mean, the first episode is sets the stage for where the subject is in the present day. And then it moves back in time with episode 2 and then moves back into the present. I mean, every episode is kind of jumping all over the map, chronologically. So that in itself was a huge challenge. I had a whiteboard at the office, and there's actually episode 7's outline is still on the whiteboard, but that whiteboard, every single episode, I would have to sit there, and at some point during the day, I had to stand up, go back to that whiteboard and write down sort of the key story points of each episode so I could make sure I was going to, you know, the story was easy to follow for the audience. It was really, really crazy.
I'd get lost trying to do that because with UFOs in particular, you could go on so many tangents. In a moment's notice, you could be talking about point A, and then the next thing you know, you've hit point G, and you've lost your complete track to get back to point A. And
yeah, it was that was actually really difficult because we have material there that. We have enough material. We could cut another 4 or 5 episodes. I mean, you know, you were there. We only used maybe 2 minutes of your interview, and we used about, maybe 5 of Butch's.
Yeah.
And like you were there for Butch. Butch talked for an hour, and I think his was like an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, and there was so much.
There's tons we never hit on, and the reason was the things that I thought would come up in thought Butch would be introduced in the abduction episode,
Mm-hmm.
and actually, originally he was introduced in the same episode that you are in.
Gotcha.
But it didn't make a lot of sense story-wise. So originally he was going to be introduced in episode 7, the abduction episode, and was going to do, he's going to talk about cattle mutilation and human abduction and that kind of stuff. But it didn't. It took the episode in some directions that just felt like rabbit trails.
Yeah.
And so what I decided to do is, the hope here is that this season will do well. And if it does, we can do more, and there would be a season 2, and then I can get back to Butch, and we have plenty of stuff he can. We could include him in season 2 without having to interview him again, or we can interview him again too, because the guy has so much to add to the whole thing.
Have you ever met Butch before that?
No. You and I at the
Bigfoot.
That was actually where I decided I'd like to interview him. Was talking to him at that event.
Yeah, we're referring to Butch Wachowski, folks. He's a hell of a UFO investigator, researcher.
Happy birthday, Butch.
Yeah, happy belated birthday, buddy. It was your birthday yesterday, but like this guy, Seth, you talked to him. Butch could go on for days about UFO.
Yeah, and he's such a good barometer in that final episode for the older generation, for like where they stand on things. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what he says is echoed by like Ron Regier and even Greg Bishop and some of the older guys. And I think it was cool to have him come in the final episode. I wish we could have introduced him earlier. It just didn't, it never happened. So, I mean, but we Alejandro Rojas's interview was 3 hours long. Ron Regier's was an hour and a half. David Weatherly's was 3 hours long. These are some of the longest interviews we've ever done. And like some of these guys, we didn't hit 60% of what they talked about. And Alejandro and David are in almost every episode. Yeah. So for sure, if we do a season 2, there's some people that we have to get back. I think Alejandro is one of them. I think David has to continue being a key part of this. I'd like to get George Knapp involved.
Christopher O'Brien's one to look at too.
Christopher O'Brien's been on my list actually, because we want to hit that that cattle mutilation and the stalking the herd.
It's just an insane topic.
Yeah, that's something I'm really fascinated by, and also it would give us an excuse to hit Colorado, Montana, that Nebraska, some of those areas we didn't get to in this series.
And the human mutilation stuff that Butch was talking about, that hopefully folks will get to see at another date. That's spine tingling, and really it's a disturbing. And the fact that Butch, I don't know as many people or how many people have actually researched that topic. I've been involved with one case, and it's bothered me enough that I don't really want to get involved in too many of them, because it's it's gory and not pleasant. It's not. I've never left one of these stories or looking at this case, the Todd Cease case is the one I'm referencing, and felt good about it. Like it's never felt like a normal situation or an everyday crime that you read about in the paper. There's something disturbing to it.
Well, there's something, I think, just in general, the cases that involve people being taken, whether they're whether it's human mutilation or just sort of the standard abduction stuff, I don't enjoy that side of the subject at all. Like, I mean, even doing an abduction episode was not something I was super pumped up about, and it ended up being one of the more disturbing episodes to edit. There's some stuff in the quick cuts that is sort of subliminally in there that I had to seek out, that was super disturbing. Like visually, once you see the episode, some of that stuff flies by so fast on the screen you don't even realize you just saw it. But editing that episode ended up being kind of disturbing, and even the abductees who in retrospect look at it as a positive experience, I'll never understand that. I'm not the one that experienced it, so I can't talk about their own experience. But like Betty Hill, toward the latter stages of her life, talked about their experience as being a positive one. And that always kind of confuses me because it seems sort of the opposite of a positive experience, and that's
like
leaving
Stockholm
out.
syndrome.
Yeah, and that's actually a great way to put it, and that's leaving out sort of the fact that she was talking about seeing guys in like Nazi uniforms on board the ship. I'm not sure how that's going to be a positive experience for anybody.
Depends on your point of view.
Yeah.
I would not be seeking that out myself, but you got to work with our friend Shannon on this show, and she adds an element to this, Seth. One, she's a natural interviewer, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's got a quick way to disarm people, and her narration of it just makes it seem it connects. And I've seen all the episodes, just being forthright with the listeners out there. I'm in episode 3 for a bit, and the show's got high rewatchability factor. And
cool.
I think that's going to be a big plus to people that see this, because there's so much content, you need to watch it a few times to really break it down, because as soon as you think you see something, you missed it. And, or, you didn't see it before, or you didn't hear it right the first time. I showed the clip of me to my boss the other day, and I'm like, dude, you got to see this, man. I'm in this documentary. Let me show you. And, there was more to it than I remembered, right? Just because, well, first of all, I never watch anything I'm a part of. I hate seeing myself on TV, and I don't listen to any show I do. That's why I'm glad I don't edit it anymore. And it was really good. I'm like, this isn't one of those UFO on the cheap documentaries that you can, oh, great, it's the same old stuff. It's really not. It's different. There's a story behind it. It flows well. You guys are you should be really commended on this one, because to me, and I'm not I'm into UFOs. The subject's fascinating to me, but it's not the first thing I go to. I'm the Bigfoot guy, but this really,
I'm not in the same
drives
camp as you. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I think that's the way I am too. It's one of the reasons I didn't want to be the guy that, narrated this one. I'm interested in UFOs, but it's not I don't get passionate about it. It's Bigfoot, I'm sort of, I always have something I can come back to and get really excited about. With this one, I just wanted to be the filmmaker. I wanted to concentrate on that side of it. And I think that's cool though to hear that about the rewatchability, because I've only spoken to maybe 3 or 4 people who've watched the whole series who weren't involved in the making. Yeah. And the feedback's been great. Like, I have yet to hear anything negative from anyone, which is, I'm sure eventually it's there'll be a deluge, but it was a completely different approach stylistically from what I did with On the Trail of Bigfoot, and I think the rewatchability. I hear that a lot with the Bray Road Beast too, and I think there's something about the quick cutting style of this that sort of invites you to come back more, because you will miss. There's things that you're just going to flat out miss your first time through, and that's intentional in a way, because each episode is topping out at around anywhere from 32 to 35 minutes. So you're with the shortest episode is actually episode 6, which is only 28 minutes, I think 29 minutes, something like that. But having said that, episode 6 has by far the most special effect shots that have been in anything we've ever done. And in a 26-minute or 28-minute episode of On the Trail of UFOs, there's over 40 effect shots in that one little sequence. But yeah, the storytelling style we implemented was intentional, and we really dumped basically everything we had into this series, and I thought it was worth it just to try it out. With the Bigfoot, we had a completely different approach, and that was, let's go back to the Minerva days. Let's spend no money other than on travel. Let's use the camera we have. Let's use our iPhone. Let's use whatever we have. Let's just film with that. And UFOs was different. It was basically let's throw all the chips in and see what happens. And we aside from gear, we didn't really spend any money renting gear. Most of the money went toward, travel costs. And then really the post-production side of this one was monumental. But I also think it looks like stunning to me. I mean, just not like everything I shot was beautiful, but I'm saying like the visuals, the geography where we were, the terrain, Santino's color grade, it's a really, and then you throw in like Santino's special effects, I can't leave out like Mark Randall's illustrations are fantastic. Just seeing the whole series come together, it's really like visually, I think it's one of the most exciting things we've done. I think this whole year that's going to be like the story of this year is hopefully like how we keep upping the game visually from project to project this year.
Well, I say that with everything I review that you do is how are you going to top it each time?
Right.
I'm a fan. I'm a friend. I can be critical when I have to be, but the thing that keeps driving me back as a consumer and a quote-unquote promoter is the fact that it does get better. Your craft does get better. And I'm really anxious to continuously see where you go next with these projects, because there's a lot of documentaries out there, and I don't want to put anybody down. I have a lot of friends that do this, but I think what makes you guys different is that the stories get better, but not just the story, the production value gets better. And that's important to me, only because we're in the 21st century now. Technology is becoming more affordable, right? And if you really want to be good at something, you got to practice at it. And you have to really, have an eye for it. Not everybody has an eye for it. But, man, I'll tell you, you're developing it quick, and I'm happy to see it. And, Vance, I've yacked on now and on and on and on. I'll let you ask a couple questions.
Well, it was just to go on the same thread that you were talking about, Sean, is the fact that what I see that makes Small Town Monsters documentaries stand out from others is the unbiased opinion throughout the entire series of whatever it is that you're watching. It's not saying, yes, this exists, this is real, or no, it's not real and it doesn't exist. You run right down the middle of the road and the story gets told. It's up to the viewer to take whatever conclusions and handfuls of facts and hand them to you, and you can decide for yourself. There's way too many documentaries that try to sway you towards the next series because, just like Monster Quest, by the time you get to the end, well, they didn't get to see Loch Ness, and you're left disappointed thinking, well, yeah, this thing does exist. So that was one point I wanted to bring up as the unbiased opinion.
Yeah,
but,
if I can talk to that for a second too.
Please do.
Just on making this series too, I think that was something that Shannon and I had talked about going into it was, like obviously we're always approaching all of this objectively. We know UFOs exist. Like there's no, at this point, there's no really denying that UFOs exist. We have no idea what they are, what they look like, what they look like for the most part, but we know that there's unidentified things in the skies over the United States and really the rest of the world. The fact was we wanted to do a series too that had investigative moments, because that's kind of the whole thing about On the Trail of that sets it apart from the films. And but at the same time, we realized coming into this that the odds of us going to any one place and actually encountering or seeing a UFO for ourselves was almost nil. And it's actually stated, I think, multiple times throughout the series, but especially in the last episode, how the futility of searching for something like a UFO, it's almost impossible to do. And there is a futility to it, because there's just something about it that feels so different from like Bigfoot, where you can go into a forest, any forest anywhere, and you can convince yourself, if nothing else, you can convince yourself that you have a chance of seeing something or encountering something. That isn't necessarily the case with the UFO. Like, you're going to go to some place and look up in the sky, and more than likely you're going to see absolutely nothing, and you're going to have a hard time convincing yourself you saw something. So there's just the approach to both of these subjects couldn't have been more different. I don't know what I was saying there. That was a great way to wrap up that thought.
What was the biggest thing that you learned from this, since UFO is not really your forte, so to speak? Mm-hmm. So what's your biggest takeaway from doing this series? Are you leaning more towards this could be an intelligent life, or are you just remaining unopinionated about the subject?
Yeah, I was actually asked last night on Martin Willis's podcast. He said, do you think you know more coming out of this than you did going into it, or do you think you know less? And I said, I think I know less. Like you can learn about the history and learn about craft descriptions and witnesses, and you can hear all the stories, and you can start putting pieces together. But as far as like figuring out what's actually going on, I think I have maybe less of an idea or less of an opinion now than I did when I came into it. I've always sort of stood in the area that I thought maybe the most logical explanation was like government, either government experimental craft or government manipulation of the population or something when it came to UFOs. Now I have no idea. I think it's a little bit of multiple things, and that's sort of leaving out the really out there stuff like the ultra terrestrial ideas.
Welcome to the club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
no, I mean,
that's who you talk to.
And as strange as it is, UFOs were actually my thing before I got into Bigfoot. Even someone had given me my friend Don, I've talked about this before, but Don was a buddy of mine. He passed away a few years ago, but Don had burned me a DVD of like paranormal documentaries, mostly like Monster Quest and things like that. But there was a well, it couldn't have been Monster. Well, maybe it was Monster Quest. Anyway, he'd burned me these DVDs, and one of the episodes on it was some UFO thing, and that was the first real UFO documentary I'd watched. And then I became obsessed and actually watched probably more UFO stuff for the first like 3 or 4 years I was into all this than I did Bigfoot. And then it shifted, and I became a Bigfoot guy, which is kind of still where I'm at.
Well, this begs the question for me. In your entire life up to this very moment, what is your favorite monster or creature movie?
You mean just like in
general, right? Your favorite monster movie that was ever made that you just enjoy watching over?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to say because there's 3 that immediately spring to mind. One is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. The other is the Claude Rains Invisible Man, and then the other that I genuinely do adore is the Mothman Prophecies. And those 3 I watch. I just bought the Abbott Costello last year so I can show it to Tommy when he gets a little older. And Claude Rains Invisible Man is just an amazing movie. I'm not sure if those are the type of movies you were looking for, but when I think monster movies, those are like
right.
three that immediately come to mind. Yeah. I think it's those 3.
Just in general.
If I boil it down to like not UFO, if I boil it down to like documentaries on the paranormal or cryptids, I always come back to the 1970s stuff that I watched when I was doing research for Boggy Creek Monster and Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, like Man Beast and Mysterious Monsters. I love those ones. Those are so great.
Golden.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorites, if we had to go to documentaries, Sasquatch Odyssey.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then I got to interview Peter for the on the Trail of Bigfoot. And then I talked to him recently and mentioned to him that I would like to have him back when I do season 2. So I'm hoping to get Peter involved again. So that'd
be awesome. Yeah, Sasquatch Odyssey is one of my favorites. It's telling the human story behind it. The story of the quote unquote 4 horsemen, and I always have a deep connection to John Green. If it wasn't for John, I never would have got started into this damn field to begin with. And having the pleasure of and privilege of being able to interview them years ago, kind of, I don't know, that was like a dream come true. So being able to talk to these guys and pick their brains a little bit, and it's just awesome. And I think that's part of the reason why I get a little sentimental about the subject, why I get caught up in the conversation and dialogue about all this craziness, and why I support these projects is because to me this isn't just some silly sideshow carnival-esque kind of thing. It's real stories with real people, and you're doing your part and chronicling them. And I think it's really important. I think Lauren Coleman said that you're doing a great service to the preservation of cryptozoology history, and now you're doing the same thing with UFOs and such. And I think it's great. One, because you're a good friend, and two, you're doing it very well. And three, it's just kick-ass to have this stuff out there. Like, you go back to years ago, and really before you started hammering the genre pretty well and getting stuff out there. I go back to 2004. I can maybe think of like a handful of documentaries, unsolved mysteries in search of, and you're just talking about singular episodes every so often. And now you go to YouTube and you type in Bigfoot, and there's like 10,000 videos at your fingertips. It's amazing to me that, one, people care that much, but two, that it's become a lot more. And, as somebody that's been investigating this, thanks to some of the work you've done, because I've been able to show your work to people, and, people don't look at you like you're a freak anymore. They're willing to talk about these things, and more mainstream people take this seriously than they used to.
Yeah, no, I think the public perception of the subjects is changing. I don't know if that stretches as far to Bigfoot. I guess it does. I mean, I think, and honestly, as goofy as it is to say, I think finding Bigfoot is to thank for that in a way. I think finding Bigfoot was a big door opener for a lot of people, because I think their kids got into it, and because of that, they might have given it the time of day. I mean, I always talk about Adrian's grandpa, George, and I always say I make movies for people like George, because George is just a normal guy. He's been out in the woods his whole life. He owns a hunting cabin down near Salt Fork. He spends all this time in the woods, and he doesn't really believe in any of this stuff, but he's willing to give it a chance. And George will watch Finding Bigfoot episodes. Like, if they're on TV, he'll put it on. He thinks it's goofy, but he'll watch them, and he's interested in the stories. And I think there's more people out there. I think the bulk of the people out there are like George. I think they're willing to entertain the idea, as long as you're not trying to sledgehammer them over the head with it. And I think that's the problem most of the shows out there run into, is they're trying to bludgeon their audience into belief or into skepticism, instead of just sort of presenting the topic.
And you got to take into account, geographics. It is by far more culturally accepted in the Northwest than it is in the central flyover United States. And it takes a little bit more. These shows are created for everybody, but it's a cultural thing in the Pacific Northwest.
Right. It breaks down actually to specific regions, maybe even states. Because I've never seen anything like upstate New York, where you'll get laughed at talking about Bigfoot near Whitehall, which is ironic today, because they have the parade or the the festival and everything. But I've never been to an area like that where you would very flatly hear from people that it is a huge faux pas to come forward with your Bigfoot sighting, and yet there's roadside stands selling Bigfoot trinkets, and there's statues in Whitehall of Bigfoot, and they do, the annual festival and all that kind of stuff. But you're right. Like, you go out to the Pacific Northwest, and there's a greater acceptance of there. Same thing with Oklahoma. People don't realize that, but that Oklahoma, Ouachita Valley area and down into Fouke and all that that region right there is basically like a mini version culturally of what you have in the Pacific Northwest. You wouldn't expect it, but it is widely accepted in that part of the country.
Yeah, if you come to my neck of the woods, it's not a real popular topic to bring up. Like, you get, kind of shoot off pretty quick. I'm in a more, as opposed to, the southwest part of the state, I'm up in the north and central northeast part of the state, and it's not as big time here as it is down there. And you're talking about the same state, man. It's just a totally different climate.
Yeah.
You have a lot more outdoors people up here, like, they get a lot more skeptical, but I tell you, you get some gems of stories when you do get stories up here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something about that. Maybe it starts in PA and works its way up into the New England states, because that's the way it seems to be out there. There's sort of they still laugh at it, but it's, there are some really, really amazing stories that come out of that part of the country.
And that's what makes
the
it worthwhile.
Bigfoot come here on the chestnut from the UFOs, and then they migrate from there.
Oh,
that's
the
how
acorn.
it is.
Gotcha.
That's just how it is.
Old Kecksburg
Hey,
stand.
I wanted to touch base with you, Seth, real quick before we run off on a tangent with the projects of Mothman Legacy and Bell Witch. If you want to touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, Mothman Legacy is only... We've got 5 interviews shot. They're all great, and I'm super excited to get into those. But that is it. It's been slow going in terms of getting the production really rolling on that, because of how time intensive on the Trail of UFOs turned out to be. But we'll be filming in earnest on that probably in late March, early April. We're going to have 3 productions that are going to film over like a 5-week span. So it's going to get intense in the early part of the spring, because we're going to be filming this Lake Michigan Mothman thing that we're going to work on with Tobias and Emily Whalen. And then we're going to do the Mothman Legacy, and then we're going to also film the Mark of the Bell Witch. But the Mothman Legacy is going to be a very horror tinged look at sort of present day Mothman sightings around Appalachia, and how the figure of the Mothman has impacted the culture of that entire region. We're still using Point Pleasant as our small town, but it's gonna branch out and be a little bit bigger than just Point Pleasant. We actually might even get into some areas of Ohio. There were actually sightings near Ravenna, which I know you're familiar with Ravenna, Sean.
Yeah.
There were sightings of what they called the Freedom Demon near Ravenna, Ohio, on this one particular stretch of road. All these people for like it was a very short span of time. I want to say a few months during one year, claimed that they all saw this creature that looked like the Mothman. Descriptions almost sound identical to the Mothman, but we might get into that in the Mothman Legacy as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to get that one, to get into filming the recreations on that one, because we took a little bit of what I learned from making Terror in the Skies, and we're trying to sort of correct some of the things that bugged me about Terror in the Skies with the Mothman Legacy, specifically that there's going to be entirely live action recreations in that one. As of right now, I don't really have any plans to do any animation at all. I really want to do a movie that is sort of beginning to end live action with some. I mean, there's going to be some illustrations, obviously, by Matt Harris, but and Adrian did like these doing watercolor paintings for that one as well. So we'll have illustrations, but we're not planning in any animation for either of the projects we have coming out this year for the Mark of the Bell Witch, or I might be speaking a little out of turn. Santino's doing some folk art that will be slightly animated, but it's going to be a different look from what you're used to. There isn't going to be any of the sort of Chris Scalf, very intense animated sequences. We're going live action, and I think that's going to bring a real fear to to those sequences, which as great as Scalf's stuff is, and as much as it was a huge part of everything we did for the last few years, I'm excited to be able to start getting into visually things that we were only able to do through animation, to start getting to do that now with live action.
Oh, I'm excited. I can't wait. You said real quickly about Ravenna. Was that near the Arsenal or the ordnance?
Yeah, it's actually right by the Arsenal. In fact, I think I have to talk to Scott Miller. And actually, Sean, if you remind me at the Canton Palace thing, I'll introduce you to Scott. He's a local investigator in this area, and he's the one that did all the Freedom Demon investigations back when this was going on, and interviewed witnesses and everything. And I'm actually friends with a witness, someone that had claimed to see this. So it's a really, really cool story, and it's something that is completely unknown. Like no one outside of this area has ever really heard of this.
I heard rumblings of it. My uncle lived in Ravenna for many years. I heard rumblings of it when I was there, but and I knew the Arsenal just stuck out in my mind, Ravenna Arsenal or the Ordnance, whatever they called it. So, yeah, I'd definitely be interested in that because, well, it's a small town mystery, and I love them, but it's got a personal connection to me, and I'm just, I don't know. It's fascinating that you still continue to pull all this new stuff out that other people have, really not talked about and have stayed obscure. That's what I love about this.
Yeah, this one's going to be cool. Just in terms of our eyewitness interviews, we interviewed 5 people. Every single one of them had some sort of personal encounter story to tell. Only one of them was being interviewed almost solely as an expert. Every single other person was there to talk about their up close encounter. So, and we're just sort of getting started on this one. I think it's going to be really special, and I think it's going to have a lot. It's going to have a lot in common with Terror in the Skies. And I know that, it's Mothman and it's West Virginia, so it's a direct sequel to the Mothman of Point Pleasant, but Terror in the Skies is sort of the middle story in this Mothman trilogy we're telling, and I think this one's going to feel like an extension of both of them, but maybe even a little bit more of Terror in the Skies, which is, Terror is one of my favorite STM movies. So
it's got my favorite scene in all of STM in it. Lauren Coleman walking down the road with Brandon's music.
Oh man, did you see the video that someone cut with Rage or who? It might be Rage Against the Machines playing in the background. Someone took that video and recut it with Rage Against the Machines playing.
I gotta see that. I gotta get a link to that. That's incredible. This Mothman thing, Seth, has exploded, and books are coming out left and right about it. I'm very familiar with the Chicago Mothman sightings. Mm-hmm. I'm familiar with the Lake Michigan stories from Tobias and Emily. I'm in it. Mm-hmm. I just don't know that the things folks are seeing are the same thing that affected the folks in Point Pleasant. I'm not convinced.
Oh, I don't think they're the same thing. I can tell you from reading Tobias's book, I was swayed from my abject skepticism about anything happening. Uh-huh. I think you could probably, I think you and I have talked about it. When I made Terror in the Skies, I felt one way about it. And mm-hmm. Today I think I feel a little differently, mostly because of the work that Tobias himself has done. And that's one of the reasons I want to do something that focuses on him and his work on the case in general. I'm curious to talk to witnesses. That's my big thing, is because as of right now, I haven't really spoken to any Chicago area mm-hmm. winged cryptid witnesses. So I want to have that opportunity when we make this Lake Michigan thing, and I really want to also boil down how it is that someone conducts an investigation. And I think that's an area that we haven't really strayed into yet. You get brief looks at investigators throughout all of our projects, especially UFOs and Bigfoot. In episode 6 of Bigfoot and episode 8 of UFOs, I think those are pretty pretty concise little looks at investigators, but we haven't really spent any great deal of time watching an investigator work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to, that's the on the Trail of the Lake Michigan Mothman that's what that is going to be. It's going to
be great to see. And I know Tobias, he's a good guy. He really is. And Vance, you've been on the ground in Chicago. You've been to a lot of the sighting locations, and you've got, I've always been back and forth on it. I really have. And I just don't know. To this day, I talked to one of the witnesses myself, Seth. I don't believe he's lying. I just, at the end of the day, I just don't know if he saw what he thinks he saw. And that's the problem with all these eyewitness sightings, right? No matter if it's Mothman, Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's true, but that's what makes this whole subject interesting to begin with.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
Seth,
because
I have
then
a
what's
project.
The point if the mystery, if it gets solved, if the mystery gets solved, well, now what do we do? No, I kind of like the mystery and the wonderment of, is this thing really what it is and where it comes from?
Mm-hmm.
And is there several different species of whatever this is? And, someday I'm sure that answer will come about. But yeah, Sean, you were going to ask a really important question.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to ask an important question. I was just going to cut you off because that's what I do best. I'm the boss. That's what I do.
As well as you should.
I love you, Vance. I'd be lost without you. I'm sorry. I'll add a little sound effect right there at some point. Actually, what I was going to say is, Seth, I got a project you got to do, man. I keep telling everybody this. I got to get you to tackle the Smurl haunting with me because nobody wants to talk to me about it anymore. And it was famous because Ed and Lorraine had it initially. It was made into a book. It was a made-for-TV movie called The Haunted in 91. I'm not kidding you, Seth. It's probably the best made-for-TV movie I've ever seen. And it's happened in a small town next to, not too far from me called West Pittston, Pennsylvania. And it was a family that was tormented through a haunting and a series of events that today still makes my skin crawl. It's very terrifying to me. And I always felt like it's a story that needed to be told in a better way. And the only problem is the witnesses are starting to die. So it's one of those things that people are running out of time on. I've always wanted somebody to tackle it. I don't know if anybody would do it better than you.
I mean, it would. I'm looking for things like this for when we do on the Trail of Hauntings. So
gotcha.
So hit me up again when
you betcha
when we get around to that. What is it? What is the story? What's it all about?
So it's a family. They move into a house in West Pittston, Pennsylvania, right after Hurricane Agnes. So it was a really, traumatic time for them. And I'll send you a whole synopsis of it when we get off the story, because I'm just going to give you the cliff notes here. And anyhow, the husband and wife, they start noticing things going on in the house. There's a lot of things they have to replace, a new boiler. But you're talking about a guy that was in the Navy. He's a very educated guy. His wife's very active in the community. And their parents live in the house next door to them. It's like a duplex. Mm-hmm. And they both start experiencing these things, and it causes turmoil between them because there's some things the mother-in-law heard that she thought was actually her son and daughter-in-law fighting and saying these terrible things. They're a very upstanding Catholic family, so that would have been very offensive to her. And it turns out it's all the kind of maniacal dealings of this demonic entity that's haunting their home, and it actually physically attacks the husband, physically attacks the wife. They moved and it followed them. This thing was relentless. And it's a really interesting story because I just heard the daughter on a podcast not too long ago, and it sounds like the stuff never fully went away. But the issue I have with it is she's also now a paranormal investigator, so it makes me, I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying it kind of throws a flag up to me that if
but there's a lot of parallel similarities between that and Bell Witch. What you just described, a lot of that activity happened with Bell Witch too. So I find that interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's a fascinating story. In that little cliff notes, I didn't do it justice, but this is a story again I saw when I was probably too young to see something like that, and it just stuck with me and resonated with me, and I've always wanted to investigate it myself. And Well, I'm finally at that point now where I think I told you, Vance, last year I was going to crack the case open and go at it. So I may just do that anyhow. But it's
I'd like to
interesting.
I'd like to learn more about that one. Hey, not to abruptly change the subject, but Vance, did you watch UFOs yet?
No.
Okay. Well, then never mind.
Sorry. Poor Vance.
Oh.
Poor Vance. Vance doesn't like his like spoilers.
No, I don't.
I could have sent you links. I didn't even think of it. Well,
it's
Sean,
never too late. It's never too late.
Yeah, I'll get them over to you. You'll probably have to remind me at some point. But
that's fine.
Sean, can you give me a quick review of the series?
I told you out of the documentaries that I've watched on the subject, it has a really high rewatchable factor to it, which for me is good because I'm somebody that loses interest pretty quick. I love the storytelling. I think Shannon's narration, as it's telling a story, ties it together. I love the work with Ryan because, I've been a fan of his, but also, interested in the work he's done with Somewhere in the Skies. I think David Weatherly, I think it all ties together in a way and presents it a lot fuller than maybe people think. I think it hits a lot of topics, but does a good job giving some context to a lot of the different materials to it. I know you asked me, and forgive me, and we can cut this out if you don't want it. You asked us both about disclosure. And I didn't know if you asked any of the other people that, and if you were going to save those answers for a topic or another special or what.
I would say season 2 will have an entire disclosure episode. I think is sort of the plan right now because we asked everybody about disclosure. I think every single interview we included that question. So I'd like to do an episode about that. And originally that was much more a part of episode 1. We actually, an earlier cut of episode 1 had a bigger disclosure subtopic that ended up getting cut out. Episode 1 got changed a lot. It was probably the one I spent the most amount of time on. I think just because I was still figuring out the story. If you think about the series as a whole, that episode sort of sets the stage for every single episode storytelling wise that comes after.
It's a good launch point.
I think I spent a lot more time on that one than I did the others, and a lot of things changed. There is a regret I have. There was this great conversation that Adam and Shannon had. In the beginning, it shows Shannon going out to this field to look through her telescope or whatever. That originally, it was her and Adam walking out there, and they had this whole conversation about, and it's in the trailer. There's a clip of it in the trailer. They had this conversation about where the subject stands today, and it was great. And if I had it to do over again, I would add that conversation back into the opening of that first episode.
Gotcha.
Because it really, I think it set the stage for a few things. It set the stage for the idea that, sort of the mantra of the whole series behind the scenes, which was Shannon and I kept going back to this idea that people don't just look at the sky anymore. They're too busy, trying to be famous or make money off a subject or all this, any number of things. That was in there, but then there was also a really good, it was a great introduction to Adam, because Adam comes back again as a sort of a character or a figure anyway in episode 7, and you see him throughout episode 8. So I thought if I had done that, I think it would have done a better job of setting up who he is. And so I have regrets about that already. And the series isn't even out yet.
Well, it's about to be, and I'm sure folks are going to like it regardless, because it's well done. I've enjoyed it. I'm going to watch it again because I have a tendency to do that. Actually watch it with different groups of people. I have little premieres of my own of your movies at a buddy's.
I think you've told me this.
I usually send you pictures from them. My buddy Ted's got like lights up, and like Vance, you didn't meet Ted, but at Ted's house, he's got like a bar, and his whole downstairs is set up for entertainment, and he's got hue lights set up. So like they can actually cascade with the theme of the show, and it's pretty awesome.
Nice.
And he's a big fan of the movies. Like he's got your posters hanging up. So it's like when they come out and I get the DVD copy, I always take it over and show him, and he gets really excited about it because it is like, and he's an outsider too for a lot of these topics. He's a retired chief of police, but he's an outsider on these topics, but he likes how it's presented. And I think if you're getting somebody like him, Seth, that's a whole new, group of people you're getting. It's brought him into Bigfoot. I'll tell you that. He's, was the chief of police. He calls himself Andy Taylor. He was the chief of police of a small town, rural town in Pennsylvania. And actually, he didn't know this till I brought it up to him. I had interfaced with him once before in our lives when a guy up in his neck of the woods said they had a game cam photo from his game camera of a Bigfoot and that he had turned it into the police. Well, Ted was the chief of police there and was the guy I actually talked to that said he had no recollection of anybody ever giving him a game camera photo. Nice. So it's little things like that. But we go off on those tangents. It's reaching people. It's good stuff. And I can't wait for more. The Kickstarter's going live till 3/6, right? Then it's over.
Yeah, I think it's 14. I think we're down to 2 weeks. I think it's basically 2 weeks from today that the campaign will end. But we're at 115% of our asking goal, and we're 91% of the way to the stretch goal. So it's died down a little bit the last 2 days, so we need to get some backers back in there. But we're trying to hit. Once we hit 70,000, we'll be guaranteed to be able to get on the trail of the Lake Michigan Mothman out this year.
And tell our listeners how they can do the Kickstarter.
The easiest way for you to find it is going to be to go to our website, because Adrian has a link that pops up as soon as you show up on smalltownmonsters.com. But if you would rather just go right to Kickstarter, you can go to kickstarter.com and then just search. Probably the best way to do it is search Mothman or Bell Witch, and that'll be the first thing that pops up. And you just go to kickstarter.com and do that. And yeah, we have 2 weeks left. And if we can hit that stretch goal, we will be backers will get a free digital copy of On the Trail of the Lake Michigan Mothman in addition to any other rewards they select. Oh, and we're adding all the names. So for that one, we're going to put every single backer name in the credits of On the Trail of the Lake Michigan Mothman, regardless of what level you're back at.
Be a part of history, folks. Open your hearts and your wallets. That's I put that message out there daily. Let's get these movies going. I can only give so much before I get indicted. So,
hey, Seth said, with your regrets of not having, certain things put in, what about a bonus DVD?
This one's going to be on DVD and Blu-ray, and there's I didn't think we were going to get to, but there's a 21-minute behind-the-scenes featurette on this that I'm actually really, really happy with how it came out.
Nice.
So as far as like a director's cut or something, I don't think it'll ever happen because the series is so massive. And I think a lot of what didn't make it into the season can easily be used in a season 2. If we can get, if this does well enough that we can make a season 2, that's definitely something we'd love to get to.
Oh, I'm quite confident it's going to do quite well. Absolutely quite well.
A lot of interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely. Hopefully. People that just follow me on a daily basis that I interact with ask questions about, like, hey, I'm sure you've seen it. What do you think? And, I give it 2 thumbs up because it's, it's good stuff. Like, I sound underwhelmed, but I'm not. It's just good. Like it all depends on your interest. You know what I mean? If you're a diehard person, you might have some fault. If you're someone like me that's an enthusiast, I think you're going to love it. If you're somebody that's a novice, you're going to really love it because it's going to bring you in. What were you saying, Vance?
Mm-hmm.
No, I was saying it is hard to follow you, and I can attest to that at the Mothman Festival. Everywhere you went, I had to run just to keep pace with you.
I'm fast,
and you're
man.
2/3 my size.
I move, man. Let me tell you, I don't have time to waste on steps. I levitate. I'm a busy man. I got a lot going on. I'm doing 2 shows now, and Seth, besides you doing these documentaries, you're also doing Monsteropolis with my buddy Mark Madsky. And I love Mark. I wish I had more time to sit down and talk with him because he's just a wealth of knowledge. How's all that going?
Good. He's actually going to be down tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow's kind of funny, actually. I'm doing a library screening here in Wadsworth of Terror in the Sky, and he's doing a presentation for a Boy Scout troop somewhere about Bigfoot. So,
wow.
We both have a busy day tomorrow, but yeah, no, I think the podcast is going really well. We have a lot of fun with it. I don't know how many people listen. I actually avoid our stats, so I don't think our listener audience is anywhere near what like Sasquatch was at its height. But I think people that listen to it are pretty into it. Hopefully, it's just Mark and I babbling for 45 minutes every week.
Like I listen, it gets me through part of my workday, which is what it's there for, right? That's why you guys do the podcast. It's entertaining.
Well, honestly, it's there so Mark and I can talk.
Oh, there you go.
Because like we went for like a year without doing Sasquatch together, and in that time, I really did miss that like weekly interaction with him, and you know, like Mark and I have become like really close in the last like 5 years, and it's funny because he's not really a part of a ton of the STM shoots, not like he was maybe back when we did like Boggy. He was very involved in Momo, but you know, he wasn't that involved in Terror in the Skies, and he wasn't around for UFOs at all, even though, I mean, he's in it, but he wasn't around for any of the trips or anything like that. And so our time to hang out is when we do the podcast, or like, you know, we took our sons away for a weekend together down to Columbus and hung out, and that was a lot of fun too. But yeah, the podcast is an excuse for Mark and I to hang out and catch up on paranormal nonsense.
Well, it's a great excuse.
Yeah, but it's fun to listen to, though.
Thanks.
No, but you know, I guess sometimes, Seth, folks don't realize that. Like, Vance and I do a show together. We do 2 shows together now, but we are 16 hours apart. And a time zone. Like, we don't get together but maybe once or twice a year. And James Baker and I live in the same town, and we work together, but socially, maybe we get together once every couple weeks. And he was a part of our programs too, Vance. So, like, really, you know, maybe it is an excuse to get together, but it's a lot more fun when you get to do this stuff with your friends. It really is.
Hey, Seth, speaking of friends, Sean and myself were chatting with LeGros the other day on a failed video Skype call, but doesn't matter. But we were talking to her, and we ended up the conversation telling her she has to be at Mothman 2020 just because of the fact that you're there and we got to promote the movies. And she's like, yeah, I'll think about it. No, you have to kick her and make her go.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this about her, but no one makes LeGros do anything.
I know. No, we all know that.
Shannon is... It was hilarious to be on a shoot with her that involved basically like 5 dudes and then Shannon, because out of all of us, pretty much at all times, even when like Alexander was there, Shannon was the toughest person in the room. Like I would love to get her down there, but yeah, I don't know if you're going to manage it or not. She's really in love with those birds, man. She's got her parrots now, and that's her seems to be her life.
No, I just, you know, it's just a matter of getting the family together for the family photo shoot. That's all.
Yeah,
we'll have to have cardboard cutouts for everybody. That's not going to make.
You know, that's not a bad idea. I like that idea.
It's actually a great idea.
Well, we'll make it happen. Seth, it's been a lot of fun talking to you tonight. I know you want to get to bed, and I have to eat dinner yet tonight. So it's been a long day for us all. And I don't know. It's good to talk with you because I don't get to talk with you as much. Aside from, you know, the message here and there, I don't get a chance to sit down and talk with you. So thanks for coming on with us here at SuperNRML. Tell folks where they can find you one more time.
SmallTownMonsters.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter. You can join the Small Town Monsters community page on Facebook as well, which is like our group. And we're on Instagram. You can look up Monsteropolis all over the place as well. Twitter, Kickstarter. Look up the Kickstarter. and throw money in our face.
Yeah, throw the money at them. And I'm a fan and a friend and a supporter, folks. You can find all their social media and website information through all our outlets. Vance, where can folks find you?
Usually they can find me, like I said before, in traffic, stuck somewhere. But usually Facebook, Vance A. Nesbitt. Facebook. It's all Facebook. Instagram, Vance_Nesbitt_NRML.
And there you have it, folks. I'm Sean Forker. You can find me everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I am my name. Go to our website, SuperNRML.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Thank you for coming along to this week's event. Remember, if by chance you get an odd feeling and something doesn't seem right, don't be alarmed by it. It's just the supernormal.